This is the Maxfind FF Plus. Over the last 2 months, I've been testing this electric skateboard in all kinds of terrain across almost 200 kilometers to discover how good it is. Using pro-grade performance gear, I've benchmarked the top speed, acceleration and range. And now it's time to give my full review of this off-road electric skateboard. Let's start with a quick overview. The FF Plus is the one and only off-road option from Maxfind. It has large 6.5-inch wheels, two 1200 watt motors, double kingpins, a Hobbywing ESC, and an extremely flexy deck. On paper, this may look like one of the very best affordable off-roading options out there, but how does it hold up in the real world? Let's find out. If you want to conquer all types of terrain and climb steep hills, a set of powerful motors is an absolute must. The FF Plus is geared with two 1200 watt rear wheel hub motors. It has a specified top speed of 24 miles per hour, and according to Maxfind, it can handle up to 35% inclines. I ran several tests at full battery to see just how fast I could go as a 170 pounds rider. Personally, I topped out at 21.8 miles per hour. I assume that lighter riders will be able to hit the full 24 miles per hour though. Even though you may initially expect a higher top speed from a set of 1200 watt motors, the majority of sub $1,500 off-road boards top out at between 20 and 24 miles per hour. So the FF Plus holds up to the competition very well. There seems to be a general consensus among e-skate brands that off-roading isn't as much about speed as it's about having a smooth ride even when the road gets bumpy. And I totally agree with that. You don't really want to ride any faster than this on dirt and trails. Much more important for off-roading than the top speed is the acceleration and hill climb ability, and this is where the 1200 watt motors really begin to shine. Even though some of my street boards have a higher top speed, the FF Plus instantly put them all to shame in terms of acceleration and torque. It has incredibly good initial pull, which means you can accelerate as needed whether you are on an incline or a loose surface. In my acceleration tests, the FF Plus went from 0 to 15 miles per hour in just 3.53 seconds, which is by far the best test I've ever done. 20 miles per hour was reached in 7.2 seconds and the full top speed was reached in 11.3 seconds. The impressive acceleration translated over to the hill climbing ability as well. I tried it out on the steepest hill in my area and it absolutely demolished the challenge. It held an average speed of 14 miles per hour all the way up. All in all, the motor performance is excellent. If you're only in it for the speed, you may as well want to get a different type of board. For off-roading, however, the FF Plus gets the job done and it does it really well. Now the battery setup is where the FF Plus really differs from the competition. The Maxfind FF Plus uses a quick swap battery system. When purchasing the board, you can choose to get either a 1, 2 or 3 battery bundle depending on the range you need. It's a very interesting setup, but whether I like it and think it works in practice, I'll answer a bit later. First, let's take a quick look at the battery itself. The quick swap batteries are 36 volts, 6 amp hours Samsung 30Q packs with an effective capacity of 216 watt hours. Samsung 30Q batteries are known to be very reliable and the battery pack itself is well sealed against moisture and dust, carrying an IP65 rating. According to Maxfind, one battery will give you a range of about 10 miles, 2 batteries will give you 20, and so 3 batteries will give you around 30 miles. Before we get into my range test data, let's compare the battery capacity value versus other popular off-road boards. Now the base version of the FF Plus with only one battery is actually one of the most expensive in terms of battery capacity out of the bunch. But if you choose to add an additional battery to your purchase, you instantly get a lot more value for your money's worth. If you choose the triple battery pack bundle, the price versus battery capacity actually beats all the other contenders. So the value is quite different depending on which package you choose. In my opinion, if you care about range at all, definitely get either the 2 or 3 pack bundle. The value is just a lot better and I think most people will find having very limited range on such a fun board is just kind of a bummer. Okay, so moving on to my range tests. I rode a single battery empty from full charge at 3 different speeds to find out how much real-world range can be expected. In the first test, I ride full throttle as much as I can and really try to push the speed as much as possible. At an average speed of 18.7 miles per hour, I got a 6.6 mile range. It's not a lot, but considering the battery capacity of only 216 watt hours, I was actually pleasantly surprised by the result. In the second test, I ride like I would normally do when I'm just out cruising, and this is what I consider to be the most accurate real-life test to compare other boards to. At an average speed of 15.2 miles per hour, I got a range of 7.8 miles. Finally, in the last test, I tried to push the range further by riding slowly and efficiently. At an average speed of 13 miles per hour, I got an 8.9 mile range. It's not quite the 10 miles that Maxfind states on the website, but I was still pleasantly surprised at the performance for such a lightweight battery. The battery quality itself is definitely solid. When adding the numbers up, you can expect about the following range results depending on how you ride and rider weight. Okay, so let's keep talking about the battery setup for a bit. The main advantages of having a quick swap battery system is that you can get as much or as little range as you need, all without increasing the weight of the board itself. If you decide down the line that you would like a little bit more range, you can easily purchase an extra battery at a fair price. Each battery pack only weighs around 2.5 pounds, so if you wanted, you could get an incredibly long range by filling up your backpack with several batteries. Lastly, if you have multiple batteries and multiple chargers, you can juice them all up in just about 3 hours, whereas other high capacity single battery boards can take well over 6 hours to fully charge. Now obviously this design comes with a few drawbacks as well. First off, there's the obvious problem of having to change the battery pack several times during a ride. It's not really that much of a hassle, it's quick and easy to do, but it does mean you have to come to a stop for a minute or two on your trips, which can be a minor annoyance. Another drawback is that you have to charge all of them separately, and if you only have one charger, you'll have to wait 3 hours for each battery. Luckily, the extra batteries all come with an extra charging port, and the chargers themselves are fairly cheap, so if you have about $24 extra to spend for a charger for each battery, you're in for a treat. The first thing I was skeptical about when I saw the board was the housing for the battery compartment. I was a little scared that water on the deck would be able to creep its way in. I decided to test this by pouring some water over it and wait a few minutes. To my relief, I saw that no water had entered the compartment. I would say that if the deck was submerged in water for several hours, it's likely that some water would be able to make it in. So I recommend drying the deck after riding if any water splashed onto it. In truth, a little bit of water in this compartment isn't really a big threat, because the battery pack itself is really well sealed. The only issue I could see would be if water somehow made its way into some of the connectors, so just keep an eye out for that. All in all, good job by Maxfind to make this design work so well in practice. Now, the ride quality is hands down the most important aspect of any off-road electric skateboard. If you want to conquer challenging terrain, slippery surfaces and uneven roads, you'll need wheels with plenty of grip. Now, the FF Plus is geared with 4 6.5-inch rubber tires. They have a large contact surface with the road for a strong grip, and their size gives them plenty of ground clearance so you can ride over sizable obstacles. Some people swear by pneumatic tires, but when you're going off-road, it's nice to have the peace of mind that you won't get punctures or leaks with these solid ones. Generally, they're just way less maintenance. Air-filled tires are generally a little better at dampening the ride, but the FF Plus does so many other things right to provide a smooth riding experience that I don't mind it at all. The large double kingpin trucks makes it easy to carve and navigate up and down uneven slopes in tougher terrain while maintaining stability. The 98A PU bushings are fairly hard, which makes sense for this kind of terrain, and struggle they'll be put against, but if you aren't a heavy rider, you may consider purchasing slightly softer bushings. The stability at high speeds is good, and I did not really notice any speed wobbles while riding. The rebound to center when carving could be slightly better, but it's not an issue at all. The FF Plus has a sizable deck with about 27.8 by 9.4 inches of usable deck space to plant your feet on. The board itself is 37.4 inches long, 12.5 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall. Because of these small interchangeable batteries, the battery compartment does not take up as much space. This results in a whopping 4.8 inches of ground clearance, which is extremely good and way more than the majority of other off-road boards. Because you have so much ground clearance, you avoid scratching the beautiful carbon fiber style underside of the board when going over curbs or stones. I was surprised to see just how flexy the deck was. It really aids in dampening road vibrations when riding off-road, but it still provides enough strength to keep you in control. To my knowledge, the deck is made from fiberglass and some other material I'm not familiar with. I don't know what kind of magic this is, but it's extremely fun to ride. Now, the deck does not have a concave like we're used to seeing. Instead, it has what I would call a drop-down area. This makes it easier to carve and helps keep your feet firmly in place, which is really nice as the deck surface itself doesn't provide that much grip. The board weighs 24.7 pounds and has a max load capacity of 220 pounds. Compared to other off-road models, it's relatively lightweight. There are lighter options out there, but there are definitely also notably heavier ones too. A nice design choice that deserves to be highlighted is the carrying handle at the top of the deck. I'm a huge fan of this. It makes carrying around the board so much easier, as you can essentially let the majority of the weight of the board rest on the rear wheels. Big props for that. All in all, the design and ride quality is two of the biggest highlights on the FF Plus. It's an absolute blast to ride, and it really dampens road vibrations a lot. I'm not sure if I'm completely sold on the quick swap battery setup, but admittedly it works quite well. I recommend you decide for yourself whether you feel the pros outweigh the cons in that regard. The ESC is the brain behind your electric skateboard. It ties all the electronic components together and provides all the functionality to you via the remote control. Some ESCs are better than others. There's a difference both in functionality, build quality and riding performance. The FF Plus, like all of the other Maxfind boards, use a Hobbywing ESC. You'll see Hobbywing ESCs utilized by a wide range of brands, including Backfire, Wowgo, Onboard and Lycaon. I find that the Hobbywing ESCs are generally a lot smoother to ride with than the cheaper Yingli and Wand ESCs that are seen on a lot of entry-level boards. In particular, the acceleration and braking are a lot smoother on these Hobbywing boards. The cheaper ESCs have a tendency to kick in abruptly when you brake, and they generally feel a little more unpredictable. With the Hobbywing ESCs, however, it's smooth sailing from start to finish. The Hobbywing ESCs do lack a few features that the cheaper ones provide though. The most notable feature is the push to start, which saves you from bending down to turn on the board itself. Additionally, you cannot customize the braking modes on the Hobbywing ESCs either. That out of the way, the Hobbywing ESC just operates a lot smoother, which makes for a safer and more pleasant ride. Moving on to the remote control. It's a fairly standard remote, but with all the information and functionality you need at your fingertips. It feels nice in the hand and relatively sturdy, and it's a big plus that it has a wrist lanyard so you don't accidentally drop it mid-ride. The throttle and braking wheel at the top feels smooth and responsive, and the LCD screen shows battery levels, speed and speed mode, riding direction, and trip and total mileage. When riding, you can enable cruise control by clicking the power button once. While the throttle is released, you may also click the second button to circle through 4 different speed modes. By clicking the second button 2 times in quick succession, you change the riding direction. The remote control is smooth to operate, and it works together nicely with the ESC. There does not seem to be any latency between the ESC and the remote, and it's easy to make fine speed adjustments. It would be nice to have push to start functionality, but hopefully we'll get that in the future. All in all, a solid ESC and remote setup. To sum up, the Maxfind FF Plus is a very viable all-terrain electric skateboard. I particularly enjoyed the awesome shock absorption and the strong torque and acceleration. The FF Plus takes a very different path than its competitors with its hot swappable battery setup. Some people will hate it and others will love it. I think it's pretty cool. It has both pros and cons, and which outweighs the other is up to each rider to decide. I highly recommend getting the 2 or 3 battery version because it's much better value range-wise. A single battery is not gonna be enough for most riders, and it's cheaper to buy extra batteries bundled with the board as opposed to buying a battery separately later. The Hobbywing ESC performs really well, but I would have liked to see push-to-start functionality. The board itself is skinny, sleek and flexy, and the weight is very reasonable for the hardware it's packing. The carrying handle makes it one of the most portable off-roading electric skateboards. It's definitely something for the competitors to take note of. Alright, that marks the end of this review. If you have any questions about the FF Plus, feel free to post them below and I'll get back to you ASAP. A lot of work and testing goes into making each and every review on this channel. If you want to support the channel and you are interested in buying the FF Plus, feel free to use our affiliate link in the top of the description. It doesn't cost you anything extra and it helps the future development of the channel. Thanks for watching.